Corey.
So we were talking about how the LBRP is like a sonnet, and certainly people get benefit from memorizing that sonnet and enacting it, but they might not have they don't have the full understanding because they don't have the full understanding of the letters and all of the depth and richness of meaning that goes into it. I guess, I was asking you about why this sphere working thing seems to have been neglected in, Hermetic magic in the last century, and if you think that that's just been an accident, or is this considered just a practice that's so deep and elevated, it's only you have to have a magician in a dream tell you to do it? I guess I'm wondering, because like I said, it's been so rich for me beginning to do it. I feel like the influx of Kabbalistic information that's been coming to me since I've been doing it is really super, accelerated. And I guess I'm just why isn't this, what all the books say to do? Visualize the tree of life in a sphere and connect the paths and use the letters for the paths. Why is it saying other stuff?
That's a good question. I don't know why. I think, I don't know if at any point this was a traditional thing that people did, but I think that it makes the most sense and it exists now, and I think that in the future, you can reshape the curriculums.
Florence Farr did it, and it was the most popular thing within the Golden Dawn. She had the most avid participation was for her sphere working group. And Dion Fortune, there's some suggestion that Dion Fortune was doing the same thing when she was doing her magical Battle of Britain. She was using the sphere working. And so it has been used, and Florence Farr got it from this Egyptian adept who started speaking to her telepathically in the British Museum. So I guess we could say that this kind of thing goes back to Egypt, at least, her Ka, or her, effective soul wanted her to know about it. And I guess I had the same experience where I would consider Florence Farr part of my extended soul family, and she showed up and was like, hey, this thing. And anyways.
Yeah, it's in the black brick, and I never knew that either.
Yeah, well, it's not, it doesn't, the black brick doesn't make it explicit of visualize this around your body, but it does get into this is what the tree of life is around the sphere. Florence Farr extrapolated the sphere working in part from those papers in the black brick. But I guess, we were talking about with the non-linear transtemporal stuff with the sphere, and how what we know from NLP and TDM with how we, the directions around our body are very literally involved in how we imagine past and future and the unconscious. I was feeling in the sphere working, because I'm imagining Sephira behind me, and behind me, is the past, and it's what I've forgotten about a lot. And, in a way, what's behind me is the unconscious. I guess I was thinking about how I wonder if the sphere working is, really making the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, really a whole lot stronger, because it's emphasizing both, the pillar of severity behind me, the pillar of mercy behind me, and the ones in front of me. There's because I told you, I started getting this, I had this dream the other night where I haven't even been meditating on the letters in the way that you described, but I got this transmission about the letter Shin. And previous to that, I got this transmission about the name of God, Eye, I shall be, which was complete with like all of this imagery and numbers that I had no idea about, that I looked up after I had the dream, and I was like, oh, all of that imagery and numbers corresponds with yay, and my dreams were just, giving it to me, which seemed very marvelous to me.
Yeah. That's super awesome. Yeah, is there a question?
Well, my question is, do you think that because it does involve like Sephira behind that it is?
Yeah, I definitely do think that. I think that. Yeah, an alphabet is, we think of in linear, like it starts here, this is the first letter, this is the last letter, that's a linear thing. But when we do the sphere working, we're putting it into a non-linear structure that it's not just two-dimensional on a page, it's around us, it's 360 degrees. And, if you do the LBRP, there's still, like, there's pentagrams and angels behind you and in front of you. And I think that, in a sense, is, like, the four directions. Even before people knew that, like, I have an internal representation of time, they realized that, like, that direction's warmer, that direction's colder, this is where the sun comes up, this is where the sun goes down. And the directions have always had deep archetypal associations for people. But it's just taking it from, like, four directions on a flat plane to, like, a three-dimensional sphere of entirety around us. You ate it all. Did you want more, Lulu? No, you're good. And yeah, I think that three-dimensionality and filling in, it's kind of like the squaring of the circle, maybe. It's like, I guess there's above and below in the LBRP and these other rites too, but like fleshing it out so that it's not just these poles, it's an actual sphere of connection between all of the directions, and the interconnection points it's just the bridge is complete, it's not like you have to jump across a chasm, it's bridging the gap much stronger.
Yeah, well, since we sort of started off talking about this, but I guess that you just know so much about it, so I would love to hear you say more. I feel like what battle magic is about, in essence, is like... I need some milk. Okay, I can get you milk. What it's about is kind of really about this battle against entropy, which is, the forces of disintegration. I realized another way to say that is entropy, this entropic force, which certainly it seems like some factors in culture are like, yeah, let's generate more entropy. We can exploit that. Let's go. But anyways, I'm seeing that the battle is against that entropy and, towards generating this syntropy. And I guess I would love to hear you say, encapsulate why the sphere working, especially the sphere working using all the letters for the paths, is such a great, weapon or strategy in that battle against the disintegrative, unbalancing forces.
Yeah, I would love to. Maybe I should wait till I sit over there. I get what you're saying. Ask the last part of the question so I can know how you wanted me to answer it.
I just wanted you to talk about why the sphere working, complete with the letters for the paths, is such a fantastic, weapon, strategy, tool for fighting this battle against entropy, against the forces of disintegration and imbalance and, madness and cruelty. Like, why this is, a battle magic, and why it is effective battle magic.
Yeah, it's I could say a lot about that. But I think that, making heaven on earth is what you're doing. You're creating the house of God and the temple, and you're inhabiting the temple. What do they call that?
Beth El. Yeah.
Beth El. I was thinking that there's a fun Hebrew word for it I can't think of. Anyway, actually, Lulu, I can't think as much with you on my lap, and Mommy's asking me questions.
Do you want to?
Tabernacle is the word that I was thinking of. I don't know exactly what that means, but that's coming to my mind. Anyway, holiness is twofold. In one sense it's wholeness, but in another sense it is a container that delineates essentially the order from the disorder. It's like a cup holding a thing. Holiness isn't just the substance in the cup, it's the cup that can hold it. And it implies that there's things that are unholy, and in this sense you're creating a cup that can hold syntropy and can hold order and goodness. And so you need that for yourself as the point of vibration and coherence. And once you've strengthened that, it's like, what is the term where if there's two things vibrating together, whichever is the strongest vibration, the other one will start to vibrate in union with that. And so you're creating a stronger field of coherence for yourself, that whenever you enter into other people's incoherent fields, that it's no longer affecting you and knocking you off. Rather, you bring coherence into their field. And I think that this happens at very subtle and unconscious levels. Even if you're just like buying a pack of gum at the gas station, like you're affecting the vibrational field of the teller in ways that resonate and reverberate. And, everything has a deep level of impact and meaning. So it's that container. These are like the walls of the temple is really what you're building. And because like physical wall, it's all made out of the same thing, but really what you're doing is erecting the temple of God, like you're creating the structure of heaven on earth. And that is what wins the battle, being inside and at one with God. Obviously, from in that, there's this fractal hologram of self, repeating selfness, and at ever greater levels of awareness, so you realize like things aren't separate, but the illusion of separation comes from this imbalance that tries to self-correct and then, switches to the other side of the imbalance, and there's this, just oscillation between various imbalances that are incoherent and not as functional or healthy. But you're creating a structure of supreme balance and stability. And that is what is so important about it. Like at a technical level, I think the structure of it is very balanced. And it's like the eye of the storm, you can reach the nirvana 0 point at the center of the wheel of samsara because you have like a structure of balance around you.
That's really deep. I need to check on the baby.
Yeah, I gotta hold the baby. They're piling up.
Yeah, that's really beautiful, honey. So
Mommy wants those in a certain order. I guess she can fix them later. That's okay. I don't know if it will hear you over there. Aim it at you.
Probably not.
I'll just pause it.
Wait, what were we talking about?
The sphere.
The sphere. Well, I guess I was just thinking about the battle for remembrance and, you know.
What's it just? Oh, my God.
How you see that with humanity, or maybe you don't, I don't know if you care as much about the larger species of it. Oh, no, I know you care about it. You care about the spread of the recognition of infinite innocence, and I guess I'm just curious about your thoughts about the battle. You know, I was reading that Magian book about the human's role in the restoration of the world. Like, the good God isn't omnipotent. Good God needs humans. Ahura Mazda needs humans to create heaven on earth, and that's pretty similar to the Kabbalistic idea of Tikkun Olam, which is that, yeah, the created world is not perfect and needs humans to participate in restoring wholeness and goodness. I guess I'm curious, do you share that idea?
Yeah, I do share that idea. I think that kind of parallels, I guess, within the Abrahamic stuff, is like the fallen angels coming and, you know, making humans, or Prometheus giving fire to humans, and all that. I mean, yeah, each myth has its own, or culture has its own take on it, but, and they're each nuanced, but I think there's this idea of it coming into consciousness, you know, as a being of holiness in this realm of swirling entropy and syntropy. It's like you want to create other beings that also can help you create holiness and are also their own unique manifestations of that self-awareness. And so it's like wanting peers, you know. I was thinking the other day about the I can't remember how they say it. Kephara, Kefer, Keferu, which means that I have come into being, and through my coming into being, I have engendered the others who can come into being. And it's like the way that, syntropy creates syntropy. And it's like...
Yeah, well, can I pause you there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it occurs to me that the way that we're talking about it, like, you know, I think it's confusing because I think oftentimes people talk about, like, you know, God pervades everything, or consciousness pervades everything. But it's maybe the potential for consciousness pervades everything, or the absolute pervades everything. But consciousness, in the sense of, like, you know, like Jung had a specific definition of consciousness. It's like able to verbally report on experience, like able to connect and associate various memories. Like that kind of consciousness seems to me to be like what is meant by, you know, Odinic consciousness or Ahura Mazda, like the ability to speak into creation and to have this syntropic relationship, kind of like how Odin kills the giant, and the giant sort of represents these like titanic forces that are divine, but they are unconscious. And I guess this is a deeper level of understanding for me.
Hold on a second. Hey, Noah, there's mac and cheese and bacon in here if you want some.
And I think I'm getting some insight, in maybe that I haven't had before, about the interplay of, you know, syntropy and entropy, or good and evil, which is that God, in the sense of a consciousness, of a personality, is definitely limited, at least maybe limited in manifestation, maybe at least by unconsciousness, by the presence of unconsciousness. And so I can see the way in which that's perhaps the sense, the Magian sense, that like, you know, Ahura Mazda is not omnipotent because consciousness, in the sense of syntropic center of awareness that has memory and agency and verbal capability, is not all pervasive, is, you know, there's unconsciousness in duality.
Right, at the level of the relative. At that level of absolute, distinction in language is meaningless, so we might as well just not even talk about it. But I do think that, you know, like, in order to remember, you have to forget. And there is this interplay between the two that is self-generative, like, because syntropy, consciousness has to create. What do you want?
More paper.
Oh.
This one is.
All right. That's beautiful.
And this one is.
Well, basically, like you said, in Odinic stuff, Odin slays Ymir, which is like the pre-conscious vibration and energy and matter that hasn't reflected itself enough to be self-aware yet, but so it becomes self-aware and creates enclosures. That's like one of the next things that it does. Like, it creates an enclosure, Asgard, which literally means the enclosure of the gods, and then it creates, humans, these other containments of order to fight against entropy, to do this. It's like another version of the Ahura Mazda myth. And at one point, Odin talks basically to the goddess, the seeress, and gets a glimpse of the wholeness, and realizes that the gods all die at the end. And so he doesn't want that to happen, so he's constantly striving and like scheming to plant seeds that will survive the death phase, basically. And that does happen. There's like, the gods are reborn. Some of them don't die, but some of them are reborn in new forms, new and evolved forms. So it's like the forces of entropy give the forces of syntropy something to do, and it causes them to evolve and to come into being. And I think that that's the beautiful meaning of Cather and come into being. It's like dynamic infinity. It's like, as much as the infinite is now, it can expand and become more. Like, things that don't exist yet can come into being. And that is art and the creation of beauty and meaning. Like, there's no limit to it, and it happens in response to entropy in these things. So in one sense, you can talk of it as the war, and the other, you know, and it really is, in a sense, because things can get bad if we lose it too far. But at the higher end of it, it doesn't really look like war. It looks like beauty and philosophy and art.
Mm-hmm. So, and your sense is that we're on the precipice of moving into a larger scale, higher level of syntropy in human life, like, because we've been, like, you talk about how we're out of the Kali Yuga and in the next Yuga. Mm-hmm. And so you feel like things are on the upswing and things are destined to get better.
I do think that, absolutely. I think the seeds of remembrance are sprouting and spreading, and that, you know, if you have a whole dark room and you light a candle, like that one light shines so much and dispels so much of the darkness, and there's so much that's been forgotten, but great maguses like Stephen Flowers and Aleister Crowley and Dion Fortune, all the Golden Dawn lineage is like have seeded things that through us are growing, and as long as the accuracy of the forms is preserved and passed on, then, you know, the battle is being waged. And I think that the accessibility to it and the cultural context to be able to understand it is only growing more and more. You know, with Crowley's Aeon things, which I think are beautiful metaphors. I don't really subscribe to it in this like objective way that he did, but it's like the Aeon of Osiris. People thought that the sun like literally disappeared and reborn, like died and was reborn each day. But then in Horus we realized like, oh, the sun is always out there burning. The earth is this thing spinning. And now we're like, oh, things don't even exist until consciousness perceives them and collapses the probability cloud into physical matter. Like if no one's thinking of your house, it's not there. There is no house until anybody thinks about it. So it's like we're in the aeon of that now, which is mathematically, you know, quantum physics and all these things is like the implications haven't become mainstream yet, but we know, like the double slit experiment, quantum entanglement, these things are verifiable fact now. And I think that there's going to be a spiritual awakening and renaissance that corresponds with that. And I see it definitely as the reunification of spirituality and science, which has been part of this Hermetic arc where they got separated and now they're being brought together. And, you know, it's will look different from generation to generation, but I think we've already made progress from Crowley's time to now, and the blossoming of new thought and all of these things. And I think that, yeah, we're just on the precipice of something that's going to continue getting better and better and better for a really long time to come.
Thank you, David. A wonderful conversation this morning. Happy Jupiter Uranus.
Happy
conjunction.
Jupiter Uranus conjunction. Baby, what you doing?